first time talking at a conference, so I'm very excited. Great, thanks. Okay, it's a bit dramatic with a heart, a broken heart. I just needed to add some blood bleeding down there. It would have added to the drama. But essentially, if you're like any of the people that I've been lucky enough to work with in design systems, you're passionate and you really know what you're doing and you just love the detail and you're like passionate, good designers, right? And we pour our hearts and souls into what we do, and we think that when we get to using it, or when other people get to using it, they're going to love it as much as we do. But anyway, that's what led me to standing here on this stage today and talking about what to do with when everybody hates you and your design system, because it does feel like that sometimes, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about us as an organization. We all love an acronym. Is that like a large organization thing? I don't know, like we just do. Yeah, okay. We also really like to keep things simple, or well, we try. So when we name things, we've got guidance on this, and it has to be basically what it is on the tin. So no blue cloud thinking for our naming, which means that our design system is called the Digital Design System, and commonly referred to as the DDS at Tesco. So naturally, it really does feel like nobody knows what it is. So when we ask people, have you used the DDS? Some of our worst answers are, what is the DDS? Which makes us want to respond a little bit like this, which is, have you used the design system? And if people actually say yes, it's like, yes, well done. If they say no, it's like, oh, please just start again. Obviously poking fun over there. But does this feel familiar to anybody? In all fairness, there's a few other acronyms floating around, and these are all other design systems, like our competitors, our internal competitors, you know, and also name changes of the system. In fairness, it does get a bit confusing. So I've already been introduced, so I'm not going to do that again. But what I'm here to talk about is our experience and my experience working on design systems and leading the design system at Tesco. So a little bit about Tesco. I've already done that bit. It's 105 years old, really old company. We are the UK's largest grocer. We have over 330,000 employees. And our design team, which is known as UXDR, or User Experience Design and Research, is only 152 people. This team works across everything from customer-facing products to our internal tools, our B2B, our enterprise tools, our in-store stuff. We build all our own software. Colleague tools, holiday booking systems, etc., you name it, this team basically works on it. And the design system team, talking about this basically from a design point of view, not engineering and product, is only made up of 3 designers at the moment, and we service all of those designers that, across those other verticals, 152 of them. The platforms that we support are iOS and Android and web. And we've got an engineering team, there's 15 of them, and we've got 2 product owners as well. Also, we're recruiting, we will be. So Tesco makes £62 billion a year, which is mad. There's not actually enough space on that screen for that. And the product tile, which we've actually just handed this over, but the product tile that we built and designed is worth upwards of £5 billion a year. And this doesn't include the one that we use on our in-store tools, as in our till. So there it is. It's rad, isn't it? I've been at Tesco for 9 years, and these numbers are still staggering to me. It's absolutely mad. Our web engineering component library saved us 31,000 days of engineering time in the first half of this year. There's some dark magic behind this calculation that I genuinely don't understand, but I trust the product owners when they tell me this. Because if you calculate that, that's like 18 years, right? It's like mad, right? Anyway. So it's hard to believe that when I first joined Tesco, it looked like this. It was Wild West, let me tell you. There was no design standard. There were no brand guidelines. It was literally everybody to themselves. So 9 years on, we're starting to look a little bit more aligned. And the adoption of the design system and the design language has definitely picked up, and we're starting to look like a company now. But like when we first launched, actually, the digital design language, which was the first version of the DDS, the main product that we needed to adopt it didn't want to use it at all. So how did we get from there to here? Okay, so there's 10 ways that we've tried adoption and getting people to adopt over the years. This is not by all means like the only 10 things we've tried. It's been a proper ballet dance kind of around everybody trying to get people to adopt. But these are some of the things that we've tried over the years. So when we talk about business buy-in, we already had that because, as you saw from the previous slide, it was a Wild West, and I think our leadership really knew we were in trouble and needed help. So they actually started the Digital Design Language project, and yeah, I mean, it was great, but what we learned from the experience is that just because leadership are behind it doesn't mean that people on the ground are going to use it. So what do we do? So we've got the saying at Tesco, bring people along, and actually it's very, very true. You've got to bring people along, right? And this particular project was a harbinger of change because people worked very differently before. They could do whatever they wanted, right? So now, what do we know about change? Like, change is a bit scary, right? And in this case, we are basically, well, the teams could do whatever they wanted before. So now it felt like they couldn't do anything. So what we wanted to do, or what this project kind of represented to them, was a bit of a loss of control, right, and their autonomy. So what we did is, or what leadership did, because they dedicated massive teams to this, is we've got everybody across Tesco, all the design teams, we weren't one team back then, and they all took part in like a year-long piece of work to help us standardize the common elements and work out the foundations for our design language. This was a huge, huge time investment, right? It was like a huge audit, like analysis, best practice, accessibility. We looked at the design, we looked at everything, right? And the whole thing that we landed up doing was obviously consolidating and aligning the common elements, as any design system would, across all of the digital properties at the time. And this gave us the digital design language. But sometimes things are outside of your control, and even when you think you're doing things right, that's an alarm, by the way. Something will come along and blindside you. So now, in parallel, the brand team had been working on a new brand expression, which meant that we had to spend another year doing the whole exercise again. So that gave us the DDL version 2. And then it came to using it, right? And we met with this really strange resistance. Like, why won't you use the DDL? And the very same designers that helped us design it answered with things like it had not been tested and it hasn't been made for my use case. And this was primarily from the grocery home shopping team. And these were the people we really needed to adopt it. So what did we do? Yeah, got this a lot. Don't like that shade of blue. So what we did then is we pivoted a little and we focused on our marketing and information sites. And these were considered like low-risk properties, right? They weren't transactional in any way. But what they did is they helped us demonstrate that the new language wasn't going to, like, can I swear, piss off clients, customers, yeah? And it also proved that the design language and the atomic parts could be used for many, many different use cases. And also, we were able to demonstrate that once we got the hang of working this way, we all started to work a lot faster as well. So visually, the sites started to align, and things were looking great, and the grocery home shopping website was starting to look a little bit like an outlier. And we're really starting to build momentum now, and people are starting to want to use it. We use it on our store locator and Tesco.com, which is a different homepage to the grocery home shopping homepage. Our recipe site started using it, and they even started to build it into our native grocery home shopping app. But then they killed a few of the projects, and there was a massive reorg. Has anyone gone through a reorg? It's horrible, right? Horrible, horrible. Like, we just all lost motivation, and it was awful. And I decided, I'm out of here. I'm going to go have a baby and look at my look at my priorities and move on. Anyway, while I was away, the design language started getting built, and this was a side project, actually, between an engineer and a designer, actually in grocery home shopping, which was really powerful. And this gained like huge popularity. So engineers started wanting to use it. So you can meet beans. This is another thing about large organizations. We have code names for projects that actually aren't the product name either. So anyway, beans, it was called beans. And at this point, it changed from being a designer's tool to an engineering tool as well. And we're kind of starting to become a bit of a system here, you know. We were officially now the DDS. Like, this is like really, we're like doing really well here, and we're gaining momentum, and you know, all these things, exciting things are happening. And at this time, I came back, and it was like the doors just opened, and everybody was ready for a design system all of a sudden. So we got the business buy-in, and we got a dedicated design system team of one at that time. That was me, and we were like really just, you know, moving forward. It was great. We were literally on fire. It was so exciting, yeah. Things started to go right. Like, we're at that point, like, our grocery home shopping website was being replatformed. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so our website was being replatformed. The replatform thing was called the MFEs, or micro front ends. And the success criteria for this replatform is the use of beans. So this was really great, right? Now we got to work with a designer, actually using the design system and putting it together in a real-life scenario that was transactional, so it was super exciting. And I can't actually tell you how exciting it is to work with a designer who gets how to use a system and explores and feeds back. And like, this really opened up a lot of stuff for us. So we were able to make, well, all those use cases that we hadn't considered before and designers were pushing back on, well, now we were able to do them, right? We'd like built out our sizing options for type and icons and forms and buttons and all our atomic parts. And yeah, it was great. I just want to go back to the product tile. That was it. Like, this was the first thing that we built. It was a side basket. I don't know if any of you shop at Tesco, but it's a side basket tile, and this was the first test. It was actually so powerful, it worked so well, that they tested it once and they just put it live. I mean, that just never happens, right? So anyway, the important thing here is that we actually got some data, and we got to see how the DDS was now performing in real products. And that opened up a lot of confidence with the other product owners wanting to, or not wanting previously, to use the design system. So the project continues to expand today. It's taking a long time, but we're doing it bit by bit, and the website is being replatformed, and the design system is at its core. More use cases, more designers. It's like a collaboration now, you know. We still get this. There's always a detractor, right? Why haven't you used the design system? And this was a real problem. We had designers saying that it limits their creativity. And there was, in fact, a survey sent out to our design teams. And this was question number 14, and it was required. What is the main reason that your creativity is blocked? And I'm poking a bit of fun here. Not all the options were the design system, but it did feel like that at the time. Nevertheless, other parts of the business started to pick up the design system. We had Tesco Bank using it, Tesco Mobile, and it was all ticking along really nicely. The thing is that the creativity thing really got me thinking. You know, talking about change, design systems are change, etc. You really have to cultivate the change that you're driving, right? And it got us thinking about the definition of creativity, and we actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about this amongst the leadership. You know, what does it mean to your organization? Is it is it like just giving everybody total freedom to go and do what they were doing before? Because that would only take us back to 2015, right? But if everybody can work within the same set of boundaries, and you've got all the freedom while also making everything look like it's on brand. And in my opinion, something really beautiful starts to happen. So because design systems change the way we think about work, designers need to be thinking like, how is this problem that I'm solving now going to benefit other people? Or have other people or other teams already solved this problem? They need to be thinking collectively rather than like deep within their vertical or their feature. So we need to change the thinking from me to we. You know what, that's actually good for business as well, because everything's faster and more efficient. And you can do a lot more with less. And that brought us on to also still thinking about the creativity aspects, because we really did pivot quite a lot based off that survey. It was like we realized that we may be holding the reins a little bit too tightly. And we took another look at how we defined using the design system. And this really works, actually, because how does a design system remain relevant if it's not listening to its users and allowing people to explore and be creative with the bits and pieces that it provides? It needs to evolve with the needs of the users. And for this, they need creative freedom to be able to do that, and they need to be able to contribute back. So there's different ways you could do this, right? The design system team could, of course, take all of those requirements and we could build it and we could design it, but with 3 of us, I think we all know what's going to happen. So what we did is we looked at the parts that make up a design, and we think there's 5 of them. So I'll talk you through this next slide. So we have foundations at the bottom, or your tokens, your colors, all those like foundational elements. Then we've got global components, and these are components that we've, in the design system, standardized across all the platforms. It doesn't matter if you're on tills or if you're on a mobile device or working with your B2B clients and users. These are the same. So they may differ in size, but essentially they're the same. They work the same, they look the same. And these are things like buttons and form elements and messaging, that type of stuff. And then we've got platform components. And these are things like the headers and footers and things that are like much bigger, but lots of product teams use them. Things that have to be standardized across web properties. And then we've got product components, and these are things like the product tile on grocery home shopping, or like, the GDA table, GDA guidance, food guidance, those type of things. Those are product components to us. We don't really want to get involved too much with those. And then we've got snowflakes, which is like, all your unique elements. And these are scattered throughout the design like this. And we looked at like, where these appear and how many times they may appear in each of these things. So you can see that from the top of this table, or ladder, if you want to call it that, it's used in one place, and then when you get down to the bottom, it's used in many places. I mean, our expectation is that everybody uses the foundations at Tesco at the very least. And also the people that own this component or these components also become less the higher up this ladder you go. So the snowflake is just owned by the designer, and foundations are owned by the design system team and the brand team. So there's different levels of ownership, and of course then who builds this and where they actually live. So this leads us into like our governance model, where you can see that from global components all the way up to product components, like these are the areas where we see the most contributions, and elements can move between these essentially, depending on how often they're being used and what the adoption rate is on different teams. They can also move right up, because maybe it just doesn't belong in any of these community libraries. Maybe it just does belong in a product file, and that's okay. Or they might be deleted entirely because it's not following best practice, or it's a duplicate of an existing component and the other one does it better, for example. Or it might be merged into another component that is that kind of does the same thing, but maybe that's like an extra little feature or something. And what's interesting about all of this is like basically collaboration, stability, and use is more at the bottom than it is at the top. So you need, you've got more, basically more you need to do to get something put into the foundations or the global components than if it was just in your product file. But conversely, you got more freedom the higher up this ladder you go. And what this does is it gives us a system where everybody controls what they need to control, and the design system team doesn't become a blocker because they can go ahead and they can build and design what they need to for their product. And they can test and learn at a rate that we can't do for them, right? We would just be a blocker in that process. So really, the design system, the way I think about it at Tesco, is it's an ecosystem. It's not, it's everything, because we're all using the foundations, we're all connected, really. And we've been a bit sneaky in the past, and we've motivated people to contribute by giving them prizes as well. This is a current stumbling block of ours. So maybe those things aren't clear enough, because now we are being asked, when are you going to build my X? Which leads us into the next parts of what we've learned we need to do a lot of at Tesco. So educate and communicate a lot. There's a lot of Chinese whispers in a large organization, so you need to be talking a lot about everything, not just the work that you're doing, your governance models, your ways of working, your components, your documentation, your releases, etc., but also how people work with the design system. They need education on how this works as well. So it's a bit of a given that you're going to use it in the delivery phase of the double diamond, but what we realized is that designers weren't using it in the ideate phase. So what we've put together now is this thing where in the ideate phase, please just use one of the design system things out the box as much as possible, so that we can test it against other variants and see how that performs. And that gave us this like holy grail of data, and makes things a lot better for us. And then, even when you're talking a lot and educating a lot, you still can't expect people to understand all the time. Even the best designers are really, really busy. And so you need to provide support. Now, we offer 3 types of support at the moment. We've got a team support channel, we do design reviews, and we do one-to-ones with designers who've got more complex challenges. But it really does feel like we're running a call center at times. We joke about making swag with this on it. So, self-serve documentation, right? It's the only way you can scale your support system and not kill yourself trying to help 150 other designers. But then, when we ask people, have you used the documentation? We get answers like this, like, what's the password? What's the URL? You've got documentation. So, yeah, it's a journey, right? The thing is, people would rather talk to people. And I do this myself. I've had one support putting something together. I would rather phone someone than try and read the documentation. But we've got to educate people, and over time, get people to check the documentation. When it gets to the thing of adoption, really we've started to look at it like this, where it's progress over perfection, and really one size doesn't fit all. So this is if they're just using the design aspects of the design system, so they could be using the foundations with any one of these component levels, or combinations of the above, so global components, product components, Snowflake should be made out of the foundations, etc. And that's just if they're using design. Now, if you add engineering to that, they can be doing design with our engineering, they can be doing design with our engineering plus their own engineering. They could just be going wild with their own engineering and just coding it however they like, or they could have built their own component library that looks like our component library. And then, of course, there's third-party software as well, which obviously we've got no control of other than perhaps the design. So at this point, you've done everything, right? It really does feel like it's a lot, but you haven't. You haven't done everything, because you need to empathize. So what we've done, I probably didn't cover this in the beginning, I'm not sure if I did, but when we were talking about the creativity aspect of things, we started to write the use of the design system into our job descriptions, into our ways of working, into our objectives, and even into our interview criteria to make sure that we're interviewing and getting the right people in who have got experience using design systems. And this all feels quite top-heavy, right? So top-down. But you've also collaborated and you shared ownership and you've demonstrated the value and the impact, and you've come in from the left and now you're coming in from the right, and you've got engineering on board, you've got allies, you've got product on board finally, and you've educated, you've given them the foundation, you've inspired and you've supported. And like really at this point, like they're going to use it, right? Surely. No. No, they're not. So you've got to empathize. You've got to listen to them, and you've got to find out where the pain points are, what works, what doesn't. You've got to taste it. And we've done it. We've done testing at Tesco, and one of my favorite quotes from testing is this one. It's the single most unifying force of UXDR. I probably could have like put my hat down at that point and gone, my job is done, I'm going. But yeah, I love this person. I don't know who this person was, but I love that person. So yeah. So yeah, how do you do all of this? I mean, like we're doing this all the time. I think this is coming ingrained in how people work with design systems now. And like if you're doing something right, the demand will grow and more and more people want to use the product. And that's it, like it has grown at Tesco. So how do we stay sane? How do we like manage all of this and all the demands? Well, I tell you what, it's freaking hard, right? We don't. I honestly think we're all freaking mad working in this. It's hard to work on design systems. But I can leave you with 4 things that we've tried. So respond creatively to the feedback that you get. Really listen to your users and respond creatively. Be focused. At the end of the day, we can't lose sight of the goal, right? The goal is to get as many people on the design system as possible so that it can scale. This is design at scale. It's critical to the success of that. It just makes everything more efficient. So this is the goal. Never lose sight of the goal. And be realistic because, you know, teams grow, teams shrink. People leave, people come and go, etc. And we really want to help everybody, but it's not possible all the time. I mean, we're 3 designers to 152. It's a bit of a mad ratio. But at the end of the day, you have to become a master of prioritization and the backlog. And lastly, really, really just try not to take it personally. It's just work at the end of the day. And everybody's as passionate about their work as we are about ours. So it's about meeting in the middle. Otherwise, being on fire will end up with you being burnt out. And we all just want to carry on doing what we love, right? So thank you.